Welcome back to the rest of the story. I'm gonna do a video that some of you have been waiting for, and I guess I just am now getting around to doing it. Well, I'm standing out here by the cement silo at Rockville. I don't remember the numbers specifically as far as how tall it is. I want to say it's like 65 feet. As you can tell, it's not looking the same as Big Blue over there. Cement silo is exactly as it is in the name. It's a silo made of cement. These are cement staves that are kind of locked together. I mean, when you set them in, these are separate from each other, and there's a crease down behind this band here, but these are actually bricks that are pre-made and are used to form these silos. These are a pain in the butt to use. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. These are always a pain. They may cost less overall to run, to operate, but the problem is that you're always tinkering with them. The cement silos themselves, they unload the silage from the top of the silo and throw it out the side into this, what we call chute, and it falls down on the side, down into the conveyor here, and out to the cattle. Quick note about the feed bunk. This, I've spent a lot of hours of my life using this, feeding silage. What this would do, this would go down, hit a stop down there, and it would flip this over to each side. So the feed bunk was split. You can see the boards are pretty well busted out of it, but you used to be able to feed two separate groups of cattle out of the same bunk without having to intermingle them. It was really nice. This thing was a pain between the chain and the mechanisms in here. When it's one of those things, it's another technology quote. When it worked, it was nice when it did work, but when it didn't work, you're furious at it. So overall, it's a little bit more complicated than what it needs to be. The plows that are in the barn, which is what we call these, just a plow, those are set to drop the silage out on one side or the other. But these silos here, they have doors, wooden doors, all the way up the side of the silo. And what happens is, as you're emptying it, you have to go through every couple days, every week, every 2 weeks, depends on how fast you're feeding out of it. You have to go up and you have to change doors whenever you get too low, because the unloader has a chute. The unloader looks similar to like your chopper. It has an arm that goes out with an auger on it that pulls the silage to the center, and then in the center of the blower, the unloader, there is a blower just like you would see on a chopper with 3 paddles that are running in it. The silage gets pulled with the auger into that blower, and then just like you see in a chopper, it has a chute. But on these unloaders, the chute is tied to the top of one of these doors, so it's blowing the silage up the chute and back down to this chute, and then out to feed your cattle. The silo came before the silo unloaders, I believe, kind of like with the chicken and the egg thing. A lot of guys used to, well, everybody at one point had to go out and unload these by hand. They had to climb up every time they wanted to feed out of them, and they hand scooped, shoveled, forked their silage out. We've always had the unloaders as far as back as I can remember. But the problem is with that design with the unloader, where you have to have the chute, well, when it unloads from the top, you have to climb this whenever you get to a point where the blower can no longer get the silage up and out the door. So the tedious part about this is that you have to climb the silo just to change the door, and it's a miserable job. It really is. It's not so bad when you're doing corn silage. Corn silage doesn't really hang up too much in the chute as much as hay silage does. Hay silage, that's a dusty, nasty job having to climb that, because what I always did, I would put a set of glasses on, a sweatshirt with the hood up, and I would tie that as tight as I could, while I also had a dust mask on with the sweatshirt hood pulled over top of all that, and then climbed it. Because if you were climbing it in a day where the wind was blowing too bad, you wouldn't be able to breathe. The stuff just packs right into your nose, and like I said, corn silage isn't quite so bad, but still, before I forget about it, this is what drops your unloader down. Just this handle, you crank it up, down, and it raises the unloader off of the silage up in the silo. That cable goes all the way up to the center of the silo, and then it has 3 other cables that it's attached to that raise and lower the unloader slowly as you go. But as far as anybody having any hopes that we're going to be using the cement silo again, it's not going to happen. Nobody around here has any desire to try to reuse these. If we're going to use any of the silos, it will be the harvesters. The harvesters overall, they cost more. They're a little bit more money up front to use, but they are so much simpler. To fill these, you have to raise the unloader all the way up, shut all the doors in them, and then you're out of feed until you drop the unloader back down. With the harvester, and I'm going to go up and you guys can see the unloader on it. With the harvester, it's feeding out of the bottom, and you don't have to stop. You're not hung up on not being able to feed, because it feeds out of the bottom, so you can fill it and still feed out of the bottom the same day. So let me go up to the harvester and we can talk about that real quick. All right, this is the grain room, the feed room. You guys have seen me in here a few times before working on that. That is the corn high moisture silo. That has an auger in it for pulling grain out. You can't fill that with forage. We could, but we would have to pull that auger out, and it would have to get a unloading auger installed on it. I mean, these are interchangeable. We could put an auger like that onto this silo. We do not want to use these for grain storage. Better clear that up. Some people have asked if we could. We can, but we have to set the silo up for it. We have to either put in a grain leg that would allow us to get grain up to it and put it in it, or a vacuum system, or cut a hole in the side so we can set our auger up to it. Problem with using these too much for grain storage is that there have been times over recent years, past years, where these have actually collapsed from having them filled with with grain corn. The stuff is really heavy, probably to a point where it's heavier than being filled with grain, regular forage. And the silos weren't meant for that, so that's when you potentially run into collapsing issues, whether it be up top where the sides kind of crumble in like a pop can, or I haven't heard of anything where they collapse around the base, but the silos themselves, like that grain bin over there, they're meant from the ground up. They're heavier around the base, and then the higher you get, the lighter they're made. Save on steel. But for this is the unloading auger for it. When you have silage in there, there's an arm. Think of it like a chainsaw on its side, that runs around in a circle all around that arm, that it goes around and it grabs onto the silage, and it pulls that silage into the center. And there's also a chain that runs around on the inside of this that pulls it out and deposits down into the conveyor system. Everybody's wondering if and when we're going to get back to chopping silage again. There are no plans for it. We're not shied away from doing it. It's just we have to get the infrastructure back up to do it. The silo that we would probably end up using out of all of them to do that would be the silo down at my place. That silo is the big blue one. The cement one, again, we have no intentions of using. With that big blue silo down at my place, we would probably end up filling it with hay or corn silage. And the problem is that it needs work on the unloader itself. The conveyor on the silo down at my place is shot from years of sitting outside and being used. We probably could, these are actually too long, because there's 3 conveyors in this one to go out into the barn. But the conveyor shot, and the feeding system itself, you know, for the plow system and all that are shot. It needs a little bit of work to it, and we really could have it up and running in a year, I mean this year if we really wanted to, but we just have to have the need for it yet, and we need a few more head of cattle around to justify it. So myself, I like the blue harvesters. It's something that once you fill them and you get them running, I mean, they're really not that much into maintenance. I don't know, I can explain it to you guys. I don't know if you're really gonna understand it. There's such a thing called as long arming and short arming these silos. When you first fill one of these blue silos from completely empty, what they do is you call the harvester company up and they shorten up the arm that goes around the center of the silo. It shortens it up like 2 feet from the edge of the silo. So what it does is that once it gets done cleaning out all the silage that it can get to, the edge of, you know, 2 feet or so of corn silage or hay silage, it actually creates a dome, a cone, inside the silo above that unloading arm, and that allows you to get in there and service it, need be, if you ever have to, if you have an issue with the chain breaking or anything. That has happened to us in the past. I do remember the company coming down and digging it out and climbing in there. You'd never get me to do it, but that's where you get into some of your more costs as far as operating a harvester. But if you go through and you change the chains and you look it all over before you fill it, that will alleviate some of the mechanical problems like that, especially as far as having to have somebody climb in there and work on it when it's filled. It all boils down to preventative maintenance, and I mean, even these silos are no different than the rest of our equipment. It's always smart to go through and make sure that they work and are mechanically sound before you go ahead and use them or need to use them. So, yet again, I can tell you right now, I've climbed this silo about 100,000 times, because that was also one of my first jobs growing up. Was once I learned how to open the silo up on top, that became my new daily job, because some guys that would just open it and leave it open until you get the silo full, that wasn't us. We climbed it in the morning to open it up, and we climbed it every night to shut it. The advantage to doing that, though, I mean, granted, you can still just climb it in the morning and see how much is in it, but when you climb it at night and see how much is in it, you know how much more hay you need to cut or corn you need to chop. A lot better than just filling it until it plugs. None of us do. Absolutely hated filling that pipe up, because if you weren't doing it just right or weren't watching what you're doing, you can fill it and plug it, and that ruins your whole day. Easily ruins your whole day. So that's all I got for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope I addressed some of your questions and probably left you with more questions than answers. Leave them in the comments. I'll try to get back to them. If there are too many questions where I can't answer them in the comments section, I'll probably have to do another video and go over some of the questions you guys have about it. So until next time, take care, take it easy, keep in touch. I'll talk to you guys later.